Good evening, all of you. Mukesh sir, may we start now? Good evening, all of you. With the permission of Patliputra Sahodaya, may I please start the session? Okay. So, good evening, friends. Hope you all are fine. Uh, I don't know actually how fine you are attending a evening session online after school, but still we'll try to make it very, very interesting for you so that you enjoy the session. So I'm Mitali Mukherjee, Principal Indrapuram Public School Girls, Patna. And today we are going to do a very, very interesting session on violence in schools. When for the first time I also heard this topic, I was a little, I started feeling a little offended. यार वायलेंस सारी दुनिया में हो रही है, आपको स्कूल ही मिलता है, वायलेंस स्कूल में कहाँ होता है कि ये टॉपिक आप डिस्कस कर रहे हो. But then gradually after attending the session, I realized that yes, there's a lot of violence happening in the school as well. And there are so many forms of violence. और दुख की बात ये है कि स्कूल में सारे फॉर्म्स ऑफ वायलेंस प्रैक्टिस होते हैं, कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा कम थोड़ा ज्यादा, लेकिन प्रैक्टिस होता है. सो we thought that why not discuss this with the teachers today. Because as India is one of the youngest countries in the world, we are estimating that by the time it is 2050, maximum number of adolescents will be in our country itself. तो जब हम एडोलसेंस की बात करते हैं तो एडोलसेंट का मेंटल हेल्थ की भी बात करना बहुत जरूरी है. अभी हमने 2 दिन पहले मनाया वर्ल्ड मेंटल हेल्थ डे. तो फ्रेंड्स, actually CBSE is coming up with a very beautiful manual which is known as the mental health and wellness manual. Now it says that there are 11 types of issues which can happen with mental health, and there are 11 types of subtopics that the teachers must deal with the students in order to keep their mental health sound. So the first question that comes to our mind is why? Why we are not talking about the mental health of young people or the mental health of people with in the age group of 30 to 50 years as much as we are talking about mental health of children. तो इसके लिए I'll give you a small example. अभी viral fever बहुत common है. Okay. So suppose, God forbid, although I'm not praying for that, but God forbid, you have viral fever for one day. एक दिन के लिए आपको fever हो जाता है. नाउ आप सुबह से बेड से नहीं उठ पाते. ओके, सो बेड टी आप डिपेंड करते हो अपने हस्बैंड या वाइफ पे और चाइल्ड पे. आई डोंट नो व्हाट इज द स्टेटस ऑफ योर फैमिली, बट यू आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन समबडी टू गिव यू द टी. Then suppose you want to use the washroom, you're so weak that you want somebody to hold you and take you to the washroom. You want to eat something, you cannot eat because you cannot stand and cook, so you're dependent upon somebody else. Whatever that person will cook, you have to eat that. You cannot go to the doctor. Somebody will take you, then you can go to the doctor because you're very, very weak. शाम होती है, आपके पैर में कमर में दर्द शुरू हो जाता है. आप चाहते भाई को दबा दें, कोई है नहीं, हस्बैंड ऑफिस चले गए हैं या वाइफ ऑफिस चली गई है, बच्चे बहुत छोटे हैं, कोई कहता है मैं नहीं दबाऊंगा, कोई कहता है मैं नहीं दबाऊंगा, या 2 मिनट दबाने के बाद वो भाग जाते हैं. रात का खाना आपके मनपसंद का नहीं होता है, थोड़ा बहुत आप खाते हैं और ढेर सारी दवाइयां खानी होती हैं आपको. Now friends, my question is, by the time it is night, how do you feel? आप कैसा फील करते हो? Do you feel happy? आपका फीवर चला गया है, fever has gone, but still do you feel happy? You feel very bad, somebody is saying. Very good. Helpless. Very good, Kiranji. Very good. You know, friends, by the time it is evening, you feel frustrated, depressed, restless, weak. Wonderful words are coming up. What is the reason? What is the reason? The reason is not because you had fever. The reason was that more than having the fever, you were the entire day, you were dependent on somebody. पानी के लिए, चाय के लिए, पैर दबाने के लिए, सर दबाने के लिए, dependency. Very good, beautiful. Mental stress, depressed. Such lovely words are coming up. Kudos to the teachers. तो अब मैं कंपेयर करना चाह रही हूं कि now you think about the children who are in the age group 1 साल के पहले, तो वो 1 साल तक, 1 साल भी ले लीजिए आप, 1 साल के बच्चे को भी समझ में आता है. From 1 year of age till that time, जब तक वो बच्चा इंडिपेंडेंट नहीं हो जाता, खुद से कमाने नहीं लगता, खुद से अर्न करके अपनी जिंदगी अपने हिसाब से जीने नहीं लगता, till that phase the child is completely dependent on you, on the parents, on the teachers, and on all people around him or her. उसे क्या खाना है वो भी उसके फैमिली डिसाइड करती है, उसे कहाँ रहना है, उसे कैसा बिस्तर मिलेगा, कैसा चादर मिलेगा, कैसे कपड़े मिलेंगे, कितना पैसा मिलेगा, भूख कब लगेगी, पढ़ना क्या है, सब्जेक्ट्स क्या रहेंगे, कौन से स्कूल में जाना, किस टीचर के पास पढ़ना. एवरीथिंग इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन समबडी एल्स. द चाइल्ड इज नॉट एट ऑल द मास्टर ऑफ हिज और हर लाइफ. नाउ फ्रेंड्स, यू थिंक 18 साल, 19 साल, 20 साल एक डिपेंडेंट की जिंदगी जीने के बाद आपको क्या लगता है कि उसका मेंटल हेल्थ बिल्कुल साउंड रहना चाहिए? रहना चाहिए, रहता भी है. बट द कंडीशंस आर that if you are providing the child a happy and a secured atmosphere, only then the mental health of the child will be good. Otherwise, the child will face awesome mental health. And that is the reason that CBSE has decided that we have to do something about the mental health of the students, कि उनकी mental health अच्छी रहे, dependency के बावजूद वो खुश रहें. तो इसके लिए teachers, we really need to work hard. We have to make the atmosphere of the school such that my children are happy. जैसे आप करते हो ना classes, happy teachers create happy spaces. Similarly, happy children will make the school happy. If they're all unhappy, mentally depressed, frustrated, stressed out children in your class, your school will never do well. So it's very important to keep the mental health of the children good, to keep the children happy. So today our session is on this, how to keep the children happy. चलिए मैं negative topic को positive कर देती हूँ. Negative topic है ना violence in school. इसका positive topic बनाइए, how to keep the children happy, how to keep the mental health of the children good. So that is the topic of today. And this you can do by avoiding violence in your school. So today we are going to discuss this. So let me just try and check out my PowerPoint presentation. I hope it is visible to you. Yes. Okay. So today we are going to discuss one of the subtopics of mental health, that is violence. Actually, friends, there are 11 subtopics in this health and mental health and wellness of students. So today we are going to discuss a very small subtopic, and that too, we are going to discuss in short because it's only a 1-hour training. So had I got little more time, we could have done it in a little elaborate way, but then I will try to share the tips and tricks so that you can make your understanding of violence in school very, very clear. Now, so what are the objectives of today's session? Of course, the first objective is to make you understand what is violence and what are the types of violence. The second is, how will you understand that this child is going through something which is known as violence? And number third is, if the child has been prone to violence, how can you help the child? What are the ways, what are the methods you can help the child? But most important for me is the last topic, that is how the child can help himself or herself from becoming a victim of violence. How the child can help himself or herself from being victimized. Okay, so let us discuss the first topic, that is, these are the topics that we're going to discuss today. अभी बहुत सारे टीचर्स होंगे यहाँ, कोई मैथ्स, कोई इंग्लिश, कोई हिंदी, कोई लाइब्रेरी, कोई म्यूजिक, आर्ट. So you will ask a question, which I also asked during my session, that ma'am, who is going to teach this in the school? Sir, who is going to teach this in the school? So the answer is, my dear friends, that every teacher who is a teacher, who is teaching any class, any subject, will discuss this in their school. Suppose I am an English teacher, then while teaching English, I will discuss this in my class. I'm a maths teacher, I'm a science teacher, I'm an art teacher, I'm going to do this. The reason is that these days, the 21st century learners that we have in our classrooms, their attention span is very, very less. It's not no more a 30 or 20-minute attention span. They hardly have attention span of 6 to 7 minutes, hardly. So अगर आप अपने क्लास में जाते हैं, and if your class is of 35 to 40 minutes, और आप ये सोचते हैं कि मैं 35 से 40 मिनट पढ़ाऊंगा, तो I'm very sorry to say your class will not be a successful class. So what you need to do is, you have to teach the children in chunks. छोटे छोटे पार्ट्स में आपको बच्चे को पढ़ाना है, and in between the chunks, normally what we do is known as a transitions. You have to deal with some transitions in the classroom. ट्रांजिशन में कभी हम बच्चे को कहते हैं पानी पी लो, कभी हम एक जोक क्रैक कर देते हैं, कभी हम कुछ डिस्कस कर लेते हैं बच्चे के साथ. So that time you can utilize for discussing these things. Now suppose once CBSE is also coming up with a training for you regarding this mental health and wellness. So 11 topics are there. Now as a school, you should sit together and decide that, yeah, 5 teachers will take up violence, 5 teachers will take up maybe substance abuse, 5 teachers will take up food, 5 teachers will take up something else. So all these 11 topics you can distribute amongst yourself. अभी तो violence ही पढ़ा रही हूँ, तो violence को भी आप distribute कर लो. कोई collective response पढ़ाएगा, कोई understanding risky behaviors पढ़ाएगा, कोई injury, कोई health, whatever it is पढ़ाएंगे. During your class, suppose you're teaching maths, you're teaching Pythagoras theorem, आपने 10 मिनट Pythagoras theorem पढ़ाया, बीच में आप 1 मिनट का एक ब्रेक दीजिए and just discuss what is violence with the students, but not through lecture method. Lecture method is not going to work, my dear friends. I have suggested a few methods here, but you all are very good learned teachers. You can come up with many new methods. Like I have come up with the method of comic strip, which can be easily done in the library, discussions, quizzes, mapping exercise, case studies, role plays. anything you can do in 1 or 2 minutes in your class and make them understand the content. क्योंकि अगर आप लेक्चर देंगे तो आजकल कोई लेक्चर सुनना नहीं चाहता है, और सुनेगा भी तो फिर उसको बहुत दिन याद नहीं रखेगा. लेकिन अगर आप प्ले वे मेथड से, एक्टिविटी मेथड से उसी चीज को कराएंगे तो चांसेस द चाइल्ड विल नॉट रिमेंबर व्हाट यू टोल्ड, बट द चाइल्ड विल रिमेंबर दैट एक्टिविटी, एंड थ्रू दैट एक्टिविटी द चाइल्ड विल रिलेट. That is very, very important. Okay. So I hope you've understood that how you have to go about this in your school. आप समझ तो जाएंगे आज, लेकिन कल स्कूल में जाकर इसको करेंगे कैसे? So this is the method of conducting this in the school. So let us try to understand, friends, that what is violence? What is violence? So for this, I'm going to show you something. Let me just put it in slideshow so that it's better visible to you. Look at the first story, story 1. It's a very beautiful and a heart-touching story. See, one day, Usha, who is a student, takes her maths notebook to the teacher. On seeing the mistakes, the teacher remarks. Now look at the teacher's remarks. Please listen to this very carefully. The teacher says, why do you take the trouble of coming to school? After all, what are you going to gain by studying? You can't cope with this. Now, friends, is this violence? Yes or no? Is this violence? Do you consider this as violence? Beautiful answers. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now let's see story number 2. Many of you can identify with this story, I think. Let's read this. Story number 2. Story number 2 is a neighborhood story which says, a girl is walking in the local market. A group of boys see her and start passing remarks and humming a film song. Then they burst out laughing. The girl turns back and looks in the direction and walks away quietly. Is this violence? Is this violence? Do you think this is violence? Very good. Thank you so much. So what are the types of violence we just learned? Violence could be emotional. The first case, as Usha's case, it was an emotional violence. ऐसे शब्दों का इस्तेमाल किया गया that the child must be feeling hopeless. The child must, her self-esteem must have gone very, very low. Maybe she will really start thinking, why do I come to school? यार ये मेरे लायक जगह ही नहीं है, मैं तो यहाँ कुछ कर ही नहीं सकती. I cannot accomplish anything. Thank you so much for your answers in the chat box, friends. So, emotional violence वो होता है जो आपके self-esteem को, आपकी पूरी हस्ती को मिटा देता है through words. Or maybe sometimes, the way the teacher will look at the child will feel, अरे यार क्या बात है, मैंने कुछ यूनिफॉर्म गलत पहन लिया क्या, मैं कुछ गंदी लग रही हूँ क्या, मैं कुछ खराब लग रही हूँ क्या, somebody's look also disturbs you throughout the day. Am I right? Next is sexual harassment. Unfortunately, something very common which is happening in the society, and worst cases it's happening in many schools also. You all must be aware of this. Even in this also, I would say, the way you look at the child also sometimes can be in this form of sexual harassment. Next is physical harassment. Physical harassment means when you're causing injury to somebody. When there is injury, that is known as physical harassment. Next, let's come to the next one. Corporal punishment. Thanks to the Right to Education Act 2009, in which physical punishment or mental harassment has been completely banned. It prohibits. But still, कुछ teachers होते हैं ऐसे जो ये सोचते हैं, I'm also a principal, I'm also facing the same problem. It is banned in the school, it's prohibited in the school, but still, साल में 1 या 2 कंप्लेन तो आ ही जाता है कि मैम बच्चे को पीटा गया. अब वो किसी भी फॉर्म में पीटा गया, ज्यादा पीटा गया और कम पीटा गया, that's a different issue, लेकिन पीटा गया. Or the logic which comes from the teacher is that, ma'am, for the improvement of the child only we have done this. वो कभी homework नहीं बनाता, कभी ऐसे नहीं करता, कभी वैसे नहीं करता, बदमाशी करता, whatever. But what have you done? आपने जो किया, क्या आप गारंटी दे सकते हैं कि आपने जो किया इसके बाद वो बच्चा फिजिकली और या मेंटली वो काम दोबारा नहीं करेगा? The student will change after getting some beating from you. And the last form is bullying. Bullying means I'm very powerful. I'm Mitali Mukherjee. I'm very powerful. मैं अपने power के through आपको नीचा दिखा रही हूँ. बहुत क्लास में होते हैं ना बच्चे, ऐसे मोटे तगड़े लंबे चौड़े बच्चे होते हैं, व्हाट दे डू, जो छोटे पतले दुबले बच्चे होते हैं उनको बुली करते हैं। जो थोड़े कमजोर बच्चे होते हैं या छोटे बच्चे होते हैं उनके बड़े बच्चे बुली करते हैं। दैट इज द रीजन many schools students from one block are not allowed to go to the other block. This is one reason for that, so that bullying does not happen in the school campus. Okay, so these are the forms of violence. So don't think violence means a maar dhar pitai kutai, aisa nahi hota. It is emotional violence, it can be corporal punishment, it can be physical, it can be sexual, or it can be bullying also. अभी bullying का क्या है, छोटा सा मैं आपको बताती हूँ। आप किसी का टिफिन खा लेते हो रोज, every day you're doing that, और वो बच्चा शर्म के मारे, yep, please don't mind, but I've seen some teachers also do this. They do it during the lunch break. So बच्चा कुछ नहीं बोल पाता because that he or she is a teacher. But that is also one form of bullying. You are taking advantage of the power of being a teacher. You're more powerful than the student because you're a teacher, and so you're doing it. So these are the forms of bullying. This is forms of violence. Now ये violence तो ठीक है, types आपको समझ में आ गया, लेकिन वो कौन से बच्चे होते हैं who are more prone to violence, who are the victims of violence? Who are they? So mostly, these are the kind of children who are more victimized than the others. Number one is those students who have low self-esteem. जिनका self-esteem कम होता है, मैं तो किसी काम का ही नहीं हूँ, मैं तो useless हूँ, मैं तो स्कूल में मैथ्स में अच्छा नहीं हूँ, इंग्लिश में नहीं अच्छा हूँ, डांस नहीं कर सकता, ड्राइंग नहीं बना सकता, प्रिंसिपल मैम डजंट लव मी, माय टीचर डजंट लाइक मी. सो स्लो सेल्फ एस्टीम पीपल जो बुली करते हैं वो तुरंत पता नहीं कैसे वो लेकिन समझ जाते हैं कि ये लो सेल्फ एस्टीम वाला बच्चा है, चलो इसको शिकार बनाया जाए. यू अंडरस्टैंड? नेक्स्ट इज दोस चिल्ड्रन who come from marital discord in the family. Okay, papa mummy are always fighting, or maybe somebody's ill throughout, so there's lack of parental supervision that is happening. Then next, children who are fearful of adults. उनके मन में इतना डर है एडल्ट्स के लिए कि वो एडल्ट कुछ भी करे वो कभी मुंह नहीं खोलेंगे. Like I was just giving an example, in the last session also. We had a PTM last Saturday, and amazingly, I came to know that there's one father who hit a child during the PTM itself. अब आप बताओ वो बच्चा जो है कितना डरा हुआ होगा अपने फादर से, वो कुछ बोल सकता है? And look at the self-esteem, how the parent has lowered the self-esteem of the child in front of so many students, their parents in the PTM. So maybe if you have a very fearful parental effect, that child will never speak. And the problem is mostly with those children who never speak. So they don't know how to revolt also. They don't know how to say no also. They don't know how to go and tell also. So they are the primary victims. Next, children with parents who are too busy. They don't have time for their kids. So the child is doing whatever the child feels like doing. Or when the child feels like doing something, वो चूंकि वो बच्चा है, उसके मेच्योरिटी लेवल कम है, तो हो सकता है वो कुछ ऐसा गलत काम करे जिससे वो विक्टिम हो जाए. Children without parental care, orphans, unaccompanied, separated children, street children, laborers, children in institutions. Next, mentally and physically differently abled. क्योंकि ये तो वो बच्चे होते हैं ना, वो most of the time cannot even convey what has happened with them. So they are the ones who can be easily victimized. But I started, my session with this example, that all children are vulnerable to violence because of their dependency. They are completely dependent on adults for their care and protection. So maybe some of you are thinking that the example that I gave is not relevant, but you have to understand, अगर आप एक दिन आपको एक बच्चे की जिंदगी जीने को मिल जाए, तो मैं श्योर हूं आप भगवान से यही कहेंगे, भगवान मैं बड़ा ही बेहतर हूं, बूढ़ा ही बेहतर हूं, लेकिन आज की जिंदगी मैं नहीं जी सकता. जो बच्चा सुबह 5 बजे उठता है, गेट रेडी होता है, बस पकड़ता है, ट्रैवल करता है, स्कूल आता है, स्कूल में धूप में खेलता है, 6 घंटा चेयर पे बैठा रहता है, दैट अनकंफर्टेबल चेयर जिसमें हम और आप नहीं बैठ सकते, मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ अवर साइज, लेकिन हमारे साइज के भी बहुत सारे बच्चे होते हैं जो उसमें 6 घंटे बैठते हैं, फिर वो ट्रैवल करते हैं, फिर वो घर जाते हैं, फिर वो ट्यूशन करते हैं, फिर वो होमवर्क बनाते हैं, फिर उनको एग्जाम का स्ट्रेस होता है, फिर वो पेरेंट्स की बात सुननी होती है, फिर वो अपनी इच्छा के कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं। ये जिंदगी अगर आपको जीने को मिल जाए ना, तो आप भगवान से जरूर कहेंगे मुझे बड़ा कर दो, क्योंकि आपकी जिंदगी, द काइंड ऑफ चाइल्डहुड दैट यू हैव स्पेंट एंड द काइंड ऑफ चाइल्डहुड टुडे योर चिल्ड्रन आर स्पेंडिंग इज वेरी डिफरेंट, वेरी वेरी डिफरेंट. So, friends, you need to understand that these children who are completely dependent on adults, their mental state can only be normal when you make them feel happy. Balram ji is saying the student time is golden time. Now we feel, no? Now we feel, because our childhood was different. I told you. The childhood of today's students is very, very different. Next. So their experiences are different. Their thought process is different. And their mental health is also different, friends. हम जब सोचते थे अपने बचपन में, आज के बच्चे वैसे नहीं सोचते, तभी तो उनको 21st सेंचुरी लर्नर्स कहा जाता है. हम जिस तरीके से पढ़ते थे वो नहीं पढ़ते हैं. यू नो टुडे दे आर डूइंग ऑफलाइन ऑल्सो, ऑनलाइन ऑल्सो. हम कितने परेशान हैं कि घर जाने के बाद भी सेशंस होते हैं, वर्कशॉप्स होते हैं, अभी आपके साथ जो हो रहा है. लेकिन हमारे बच्चों के साथ ऐसा नहीं था ना. वी यूज्ड टू गो टू द प्लेग्राउंड एंड प्ले. हमारा बचपन ऐसा नहीं था. So, the scenario is very different. So, we need to think that way. अगर आप एक बार उस लाइन में सोचना शुरू कर देंगे ना, तो क्या होगा कि आप थोड़े compassionate हो जाएंगे. ज्यादा आप हैं compassionate. I know you're very compassionate. You are very thoughtful about your kids. लेकिन अगर आप इस एंगल से सोचना शुरू कर देंगे, तो you will be a little more compassionate about your children, which is the need of the hour. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now, suppose some violence has happened with the child. So how will it affect? How will it affect helicopter parents? How will it affect? The child will be under shock, confusion, guilt. अरे मैं वहां गया ही क्यों, मेरे साथ मैं नहीं जाता, मैं नहीं बोलता, मेरे साथ नहीं होता. अगर मैं भैया को कुछ नहीं बोलता तो भैया मुझे नहीं पीटते. So they may be in guilt also at times. They are angry, they are ashamed, they are fearful, they are sad. So this is the effect of violence on the mental health of students. और अगर किसी बच्चे के में ऐसा कुछ भी आपको दिखेगा, शॉक, कंफ्यूजन, गिल्ट, सैडनेस, एंगर, शेम, फियर, ऐसा कुछ भी होगा, हेट फॉर हिमसेल्फ और हरसेल्फ भी हो सकता है, हेट फॉर अदर्स भी हो सकता है, तो डू यू थिंक द मेंटल हेल्थ विल रिमेन गुड? एब्सोल्युटली नो. It will affect the mental health of the child, and that is the point which we are afraid of. And of course, remember, the child may have concentration issues, which finally will lead to mental health issues and physical health issues also. Physical health, I want to mention here, it can be due to corporal punishment, it can be due to physical violence, and it can be due to sexual harassment also. The child, और अगर उसके साथ दूसरे भी किसी फॉर्म का violence हुआ, the child may do physical harm to himself or herself as well. So you see how dangerous it is. What a big issue it is. So we all need to be sensitized, friends, and we all need to do something about it. Okay. Next is, you are a teacher now. Look at the eyes. You can see the eyes on the screen. So your eyes should be big and open, wide open like this always. I know we are expecting a lot from teachers, but what to do? Teacher is a candle who consumes himself and gives light, isn't it? So expectations from the teacher is too much, too much, too much. And you have to find out a way. So, how will you understand as a teacher? आप एक क्लास में जाते हो और आप उसका क्लास टीचर हो या सब्जेक्ट टीचर हो या प्रिंसिपल हो, आप कोऑर्डिनेटर हो, you are on around and you're seeing. There are certain, although I cannot enlist everything, but there are certain detectors which can help you understand या find out या diagnose कि यार इस बच्चे के साथ कुछ ना कुछ जरूर हुआ है गलत. And then you can always go into your diagnostic mode and save the child. So what are the behavioral problems that you might find? Social withdrawal. वो बच्चा किसी के साथ बात नहीं कर रहा, वो अकेले रहना चाहता है, वो स्कूल भी कम हो सकता है आना शुरू कर दे. Aggression. गुस्सा. आप कुछ बोलो, अच्छे से ही बोलो, या थोड़ा आप भी गुस्सा हो गया, वो बच्चा बहुत रिएक्ट करेगा, जो पहले शायद वो नहीं करता था. और फिर आप उसे और पनिशमेंट दोगे. How could you talk like this to me? I'm your teacher. But please don't do that. Try to understand why this is happening. Now you have a new insight, isn't it? Over pleasing behavior. किसी भैया ने उसको बुली किया, अब वो भैया के सामने हमेशा मुस्कुराएगा, हाँ भैया, प्लीज भैया, यस भैया, यू आर राइट भैया. ओवर प्लीजिंग भी हो सकता है, कुछ तो हुआ होगा, that is why he has become over pleasing. Then maybe he'll be very detached from his friends, from his peers, from family members, from parents. Drastic change in the achievement pattern, and I think it's needless to mention that that drastic change be for the lower grades, not for the better grades. Use of abusive sexual language. Suppose the child has been victimized into sexual harassment. So the child will know so many things, maybe the others don't know, और वो पहले नहीं जानता था. तो वो हो सकता है words को use करे classroom में. Then substance abuse means drugs, addicted to drugs. Now psychologically क्या हो सकता है उसके साथ? Eating या sleeping disorders. बहुत ज्यादा सोने लगेगा या नहीं सोएगा, बिल्कुल. बहुत ज्यादा खाना खाएगा या बिल्कुल नहीं खाएगा. This can also happen. Anxiety भी हो सकती है, indifference भी हो सकता है. I'm not interested. जो कर तुम लोग कर रहे हो, I don't want to participate in the program. I don't want to go for sports day. I don't want to be in the assembly. Depression, and which I don't want to utter from my mouth, but I have to. Suicidal attempts. All this can lead to suicide. And so that this doesn't happen, this session is being conducted. More sessions will be conducted, should be conducted. Friends, so that you keep yourself very alert. You understand the trauma of the child. You understand what the child is going through, and you can help the child instead of just giving punishments. Then pregnancy in case of girls, if the child has gone through sexual harassment, sexually transmitted infections, sexualized behavior. Like I was telling you, I was just discussing in the other batch. When I was in my previous school, there was a child in nursery, and the child showed some behavior which was objectionable in the class, and she was regularly doing it. Now, when the teacher came to me that, ma'am, this is happening in the class, I think there's something wrong with the child. Then I also observed it and I called the parents. Now, while discussing with the parents, बात ये सामने आई कि उस बच्चे ने कोई ऐसे फिल्म या ऐसा कुछ देख लिया मम्मी के मोबाइल पर जो उसको नहीं देखना चाहिए था. मतलब प्रीमेच्योर बच्चे ने वो चीज देख लिया. ठीक है. Now what happened, when the child saw that video, the child started repeating the same thing. The child wanted to imitate it because बच्चे को नहीं पता वो सही है वो गलत है वो क्या है. बच्चे ने जो देखा वीडियो, बच्चा उसको इमिटेट करना चाह रहा था. वो इमिटेट हर जगह करता था, क्लास में भी, बस में भी, घर पे भी में भी. So this is also a form of sexual abuse, violence. आपने उस बच्चे को वो दिखाया which the child should not have seen at that age. So parents also need to be involved. All this needs the involvement of parents. Parents have to be kept in the loop. Then only they will understand their responsibilities also, and we can understand our responsibilities also and help the child, because you alone cannot help. आप बच्चा 24 घंटा स्कूल में नहीं है. That is very important. Next is psychosomatic illness. Physical में psychosomatic illness हो सकता है. Pain in genital areas, urinary infections, vomiting if the child has got poisoned and all, respiratory problems due to drowning, suffocation, bite marks, bruises, burns, and poor appearance in health and hygiene. ये बहुत common है. अचानक आप देखोगे, when the girls reach puberty maybe, or the boys hit the puberty, what happens is they become very, very shabby looks. You can see shabby looks. Because कभी-कभी बच्चे को एहसास होता है, यार लगता है मैं ठीक ही नहीं हूँगा, मुझे एनर्जी नहीं मिल रही है, वो बहुत लो फील कर रहा है. सो वो हमेशा वायलेंस के लिए नहीं होता. दैट कैन बी ड्यू टू प्यूबर्टी ऑल्सो, बट इट कैन बी ड्यू टू वायलेंस ऑल्सो. जब बच्चा ये फील करता है मेरी जिंदगी में तो कुछ बचा ही नहीं है, अब बेकार है, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता, मैं लो सेल्फ एस्टीम में चला जाता हूँ बच्चा, तो द चाइल्ड विल नॉट बी कॉन्शियस ऑफ हिज लुक्स और हर लुक्स. So this could also be one reason. So please be aware, if you see any such thing, your antenna खड़ा हो जाना चाहिए, teachers antenna, और आप अपने diagnostic process में लग जाइए. ठीक है. Don't leave the child alone, because a child is a child. चाहे वो किसी भी +2 का भी हो, तो वो बच्चा है. जब तक वो खुद कमाने नहीं लगता, वो खुद खाने नहीं लगता, वो खुद अपने लाइफ को अपने तरीके से नहीं जीना लगता, वो बच्चा है. इवन हमारे इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेजेस में, मेडिकल कॉलेजेस में, they are all kids till they get settled in life. You have to do the hands holding. It's very important, but the kind of hand holding changes. Nursery में हम अलग तरीके से डील करते हैं, +2 में हम अलग तरीके से डील करते हैं, but dealing is important. Don't leave the child in solitude, please. Next is locating violence. आपके स्कूल में, आप हो सकता है many of you will disagree with me also. You will say, no ma'am, this cannot happen in my school. My school is a zero violence school. मेरे स्कूल में कहीं violence हो ही नहीं सकता. तो सबसे पहले तो आप ये सोचना छोड़ दें, क्योंकि अगर आपने लाल चश्मा पहन लिया तो आपको पूरी दुनिया लाल नजर आएगी, लेकिन लाल होती तो नहीं है ना, एक्चुअली इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट. सो प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, वो चश्मा निकालिए और इंट्रोस्पेक्ट कीजिए. आई एम श्योर योर स्कूल्स आर नो वायलेंस जोन, बट स्टिल मोर एंड मोर ऑफ इंट्रोस्पेक्शन, more and more of vigilance, more and more of alertness is required, because your school could be a center of violence. On the way, when the child is going from school to home or home to school, that could be a place of violence. Your home, the child's home, could be a place of violence. The community could be a place of violence, or cyberspace. आप एक बच्चे एक फोटो डालता है, बहुत सुंदर सा फोटो, ये सोचकर क्या विल गेट सो मेनी लाइक्स एंड कमेंट्स. But what happens? The child gets many likes and many comments, but at one child is writing something negative, something abusive. आप सोचो उस बच्चे की मेंटल हेल्थ क्या हो जाएगी. So you have to train your children how much to get involved in this digital, how much away you have to be away from it. ये सारी चीजें आपको बतानी है as a teacher, ताकि आपके बच्चे को साइबर वायलेंस का शिकार नहीं होना पड़े. Just I think 3-4 days back, there was one letter shared from Patliputra Sahoda itself. It came in the common group. You all must have seen that we have to put a banner outside of a school कि भाई इस स्कूल के इतने मीटर के दौरान आपको पान बीड़ी सिगरेट गुटखा नहीं बेचना है. What is that for? कि वायलेंस नहीं हो घर से स्कूल, स्कूल से घर जाने के रास्ते में. Even our government is taking such steps. This one reason is to avoid violence. There are many more reasons as well. So please, we have to be alert. We have to keep our eyes open, and we have to search for wrong things which are happening here. Okay. Next, where inside the school violence can happen? कहाँ हो सकता है violence? Dark, isolated rooms. So this is one place where violence can happen. Washrooms में सबसे ज़्यादा violence होता है. Or the problem is we cannot have CCTVs in the washrooms. So what you have to do is you have to use your own tricks, like what I did in my previous school, which was of course a co-ed school, and the boys' washroom, there was always some or the other problem there. So I put a CCTV there. Of course it was a dead CCTV. I took one from my dumped CCTVs which were not working. I did not connect it, but I put a CCTV there. Okay. And what I used to do is I used to announce, there were some boys are all, or some girls are always there whom you know. So, I always used to announce some names. But all of a sudden, I used to see children in the assembly maybe now. Yesterday, I saw something not good in the CCTV about you. So please, children, be aware. I'm giving you the last chance. And it was all false. But then the children thought, "Arey, ma'am, सच में CCTV से देख रही हैं." So, these are the ways, these are the tricks you have to keep control over things which are happening in your school. Then inside the classroom, you can see what the teacher is doing. So I hope in none of your schools this is happening. And if this is happening, it should not happen. Then on the internet and computer labs, this boy is showing a heart to this girl. So she must be feeling embarrassed. It's a kind of sexual harassment. Okay. And the other boy is laughing also. Then maybe in the playgrounds where there's no adult supervision, actually there's one PHE teacher and there's one class and the playground is a big area. Children get scattered. So maybe something wrong is happening somewhere. So you have to be very, very careful. These are just a few places, but we really cannot say. जब classroom के अंदर हो सकता है violence, तो कौन सी जगह safe है? आपको खुद से पता करना होगा, ठीक है? और सब जगह को safe बनाना होगा. Next, ये locations जो है, this you should discuss with the students also, especially the younger ones. You should discuss that these are the areas which is not meant for you. When you go there, please go. How you should go, maybe with your friend you should go. You should not roam around here and there all alone here in the playground, or you should not go to that area. You should not go to the senior class areas. तो ये आपको बच्चों के साथ discuss करते रहना चाहिए. This is very, very important. Now, violence within school and its effects क्या होता है? तो स्कूल में वायलेंस कैसे कैसे होता है? अरे मोटू इधर आजा, अरे यू आर अ टफर, यू आर एन इडियट, यू कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग इन लाइफ, यू आर अ लूजर, यू आर वर्थलेस. एक्सक्लूड कर देते हैं बच्चे. मेरे पास आते हैं बहुत सारे बच्चे and they tell, "Ma'am, nobody keeps me in any group." That means children themselves are excluding somebody from their group, isn't it? Then bribing, or the big boy comes and has the lunch of the others. Teacher roams around and takes the lunch, good lunch, but the student cannot say anything. Hitting somebody, pushing somebody, damaging the property. This is all violence happening in school. So please make sure that this is not happening in your school. You should not even gossip about this. Don't gossip about children in your staff room, in your bus, in the school campus. Okay, very good. Next is how during violence, suppose it happens, even if you're very good, you're very active, you're very proactive, you are against violence, you speak against violence, but still violence happens in your school, what will you do? How will you keep your children safe? That is very important to know. Let us discuss one case study for this. आप ये case study रख भी सकते हैं अपने साथ. You can take a screenshot and you can discuss it with your students. Actually, this is the method of teaching. So you can make many of your own case studies and discuss it. During the English class, I don't know why this comes every time, and disturbs my screen. During the English class, the teacher caught Nima repeatedly giggling. The teacher slapped Nima and dragged him to the front of the class, pulling his ear. The teacher turned towards the class and shouted, "I will not tolerate any indiscipline in my class." He then caned the boy on his legs before the class and asked him to leave the classroom. Now, here the teacher himself or herself is creating violence. Now tell me, friends, will Nima, suppose the teacher is very good, the teacher is excellent content, very talented teacher, academically qualified teacher, very good English the teacher has, everything is very good. But do you think Nima will ever love and respect this teacher? What do you think? अगर नीमा को 100 में 100 भी आए इंग्लिश में, तो भी क्या उस टीचर को लव एंड रिस्पेक्ट कर सकता है? Never. Absolutely correct. Never. What is the reason? The reason is इस टीचर ने नीमा के सेल्फ एस्टीम को बहुत बहुत डाउन किया. इस टीचर ने नीमा की बेइज्जती की क्लास के सामने. इस टीचर ने नीमा को फिजिकली वायलेंस दिया. So this child will never love the teacher. And let me tell you one thing, which I always say. If the child doesn't love you, the child will never love your subject. No matter how good a teacher you are. You're a doctorate, you're a PhD, you're overqualified, underqualified, whatever it is. But if the teacher doesn't love you, if the student doesn't love you, the student will never love your subject. Never, never, never. हो सकता है उस बच्चे को बहुत अच्छे नंबर आ जाए, वो ट्यूशन की वजह से, वो आपकी वजह से नहीं है. वो उस बच्चे का अपनी चाहत है, अपनी कोशिश उसकी वजह से, आपके लिए नहीं है. So please remember this. When the child loves you, the child loves your subject as well. The child loves your content as well. Whatever you do, the child loves it. So please don't do this in the class. Please don't kill yourself in front of any child in the class like this. You are killing yourself as a teacher. So this could be one case study which you can discuss in the class, and then the children will come up. अब बच्चों के साथ discuss करेंगे तो बच्चे कहें, हाँ मैम, that ma'am did this with me. Ma'am, when I was in class 1, this happened with me. Ma'am, पता है आज क्या हुआ? आज ना सुकृति को मैम ने ऐसे किया. So as a teacher now, you are coming to know so many things, and the child is speaking about violence in the front of you. तो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग? बच्चे के अंदर जो बात है वो बाहर आ रही है. बच्चा बोलना सीख रहा है, बच्चा आप पे विश्वास करके बोल रहा है. नाउ एज अ टीचर और एज अ सब्जेक्ट टीचर, यू कैन ऑलवेज प्रोसीड विद दिस केस एंड ट्राई टू डू समथिंग सो दैट द वायलेंस केसेस आर नॉट रिपीटेड इन योर क्लास. दिस इज हाउ यू हेल्प अदर्स. ओके, नाउ so what is the summary? The summary till here is the child has to learn how to speak. If the child keeps, जैसे मेरे साथ कुछ गलत हुआ और मैंने उसे अपने तक दबा कर रखा, तो एक दिन तो ऐसा आएगा ना जब दबाते 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 ये वोल्केनो इरप्ट कर जाएगा. So similarly, please teach the child. अगर बच्चे के साथ वायलेंस हो गया, you have to train the child to speak and speak to the person on whom the child has faith. और वो पर्सन आप होने चाहिए. टीचर्स के अंदर इतनी स्किल होनी चाहिए कि बच्चे पे विश्वास करें, बच्चे पे फेथ रखें. So the first thing that the teacher should do is teach the child to say no. Teach the child to say no. Like this example. You see this example. Gopal is in class 8. Several boys in the class are beginning to develop a mustache. His classmates have started teasing him and telling him he's too much like a girl. When he went to play cricket, his teammates told him that they did not want him in the team anymore. इसका क्या कारण है? Because उसके मूंछ नहीं उग रहे थे. That is why teammates are saying you are more like a girl. ये क्या हो रहा है? Now suppose you say this, now the child will start thinking कि उसके साथ कुछ ऐसा हुआ था या नहीं, या किसी और के साथ ऐसा हुआ था कि नहीं जिसको वो जानता है. Now you will tell the child कि बेटा, do you think this is correct? Do you think what happened with Gopal is correct? Children will say no. Children will say no ma'am, it should not have happened. Gopal को मूंछ बाद में आएंगे. तो that means through a case study आप बच्चे को समझा रहे हो क्या सही है क्या गलत है. So if now you can ask a question to your students. If you had been in that cricket team, would you also boycott Gopal? Now the child will say, no ma'am, no ma'am. मूछ नहीं तो क्या, वो तो अच्छा खेल भी सकता है ना, वो अच्छा बैट्समैन हो सकता है, वो अच्छा बॉलर हो सकता है, वो अच्छा फील्डर हो सकता है, मुझसे क्या लेना देना. So now the child learns to say no. इसका मतलब ये है बेटा कि तुम्हारे फ्रेंड जो कर रहे हैं सब कुछ सही नहीं है, कुछ गलत भी हो सकता है. एज अ टीचर यू आस्क दिस, तो बच्चे कहेंगे हाँ मैम, बहुत, हाँ मैम उसने ये गलती किया था, हाँ मैम रमेश ने ये गलती किया था, हाँ मैम सीता ने एक बार ऐसे की थी. तो दैट मीन्स द चिल्ड्रन स्टार्ट रियलाइजिंग दैट माय फ्रेंड्स कैन आल्सो बी रॉन्ग, एंड इफ माय फ्रेंड्स आर रॉन्ग आई हैव टू से नो. अगर कोई बच्चे को आप प्रोवोक कर रहे हैं कुछ गलत करने के लिए, तो फर्स्ट थिंग द चाइल्ड शुड डू इज लर्न टू से नो एंड गो फ्रॉम देयर, मूव अवे फ्रॉम देयर. किसके कहा मूव अवे करना है? To some person on whom the child has trust, and the child can go and narrate the story there. So you have to teach the child a simple principle. What is that principle? No, go, tell. You have to say no, you have to move away from there immediately, and you have to go and tell this to somebody who can help you in that situation. Okay, so this is very important. अगर आपने ये प्रिंसिपल बच्चे को समझा दिया केस स्टडीज के थ्रू, डिस्कशंस के थ्रू, रोल प्लेस के थ्रू, तो आप समझिए आपने 90% काम कर दिया. आपके बच्चे अपने आप को खुद प्रोटेक्ट करने लगेंगे. दे विल बी एबल टू प्रोटेक्ट देमसेल्फ, बिकॉज फिजिकली यू कैन नॉट बी प्रेजेंट एवरीवेयर विद द चाइल्ड, बट मेंटली यू आर प्रेजेंट. मेंटली आप प्रेजेंट. जब भी बच्चा किसी गलत सिचुएशन में जाएगा, वो आपको याद करेगा, आपके केस स्टडीज को, आपके रोल प्लेस को याद करेगा और कहेगा नो नो नो, आई हैव टू से नो हियर, I cannot be with this. This is wrong. And I have to move away from there and go and tell this to ma'am, go and tell this to sir, go and tell this to my father, go and tell this to my mother. So this is very, very important. Now look at this. You can even give this example. It's a beautiful example. Zero took his father's car to his friend's birthday party. He is 17 years old and does not have a driving license. He and his friends did not wear seat belts. They played loud music and felt it was fun. Zero drove at full speed. The car hit a huge heap of concrete piled up. He and his friends got injured as their heads banged against the car. अब आप बच्चे से पूछिए, had you been Zero's friend, what would you have done? तो बच्चा अब कहेगा, मैम आई वुड से नो नो, आई एम नॉट गोइंग विद यू, यू डोंट हैव अ ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस, यू आर नॉट वेयरिंग अ सीट बेल्ट, यू ड्राइव वेरी फास्ट, आई विल नॉट गो विद यू. सो द चाइल्ड लर्न्स हाउ टू से नो. Then you say, अच्छा बेटा, then how will you protect Zero? Zero तो जाएगा जरूर पार्टी करने. If you don't go, somebody else will go with him. How will you protect? So now the child starts using his brain and says, ma'am, we can inform Zero's father. We can inform teacher. Teacher will inform Zero's father. So these things will come. That means the child will learn how to help the peer also. वो भी वायलेंस का शिकार नहीं हो, वो भी गलत चीज का शिकार नहीं हो. दो peers, friends will help each other. तो आप सोचिए आपका स्कूल कितना स्ट्रांग होगा. आपके स्कूल में वायलेंस की कोई चांसेस ही नहीं रहेंगे. बच्चे एक दूसरे को हेल्प करेंगे, टीचर एक दूसरे को हेल्प करेगा, so that no child is affected, no child is falls into the prey of violence of any form. Okay, ये तो self violence है. Zero is doing self violence, so you have to protect the child also. So no, go, tell technique. You have to remember, friends, please don't forget this technique. So no, go, tell approach, you have all understood. Now being, if you really want to keep your children safe, please teach them how to ask these two questions also. Is this safe for me? Is it safe for the other person? How? Why will you tell no? कब आप no कहोगे? आपको सोचना होगा कि whatever Zero is trying to tell me, is it safe? क्या मुझे ये करना चाहिए, क्या मुझे ये नहीं करना चाहिए? Then you should say no. Okay. The next is, as a teacher, as an individual, अगर आप चाहते हैं वाकई कि आपके स्कूल में वायलेंस नहीं हो फ्रेंड्स, तो only you thinking like this will not help. If the individual, you should think of removing violence from your school, and next you must make sure that no violence is a shared vision of your school. You remember shared vision? I've taken a session on visions also. If anyone of you attended, you'll remember कि एक आपका पर्सनल विजन होता है कि नहीं भाई, मेरा पर्सनल विजन है कि मैं किसी के साथ बैलेंस नहीं करूंगी, ना होने दूंगी अपने आसपास। और एक शेयर्ड विजन होता है, अगर कोई आपके सामने कुछ गलत कर रहा है तो आप उसको भी स्टॉप करोगे। सो एज अ होल स्कूल, एज अ टीम, वी वर्क टुगेदर दैट दिस स्कूल इज अ नो वायलेंस स्कूल। You have to be a positive role model. You have to keep telling people कि balance नहीं करना है. You have to teach people कि constructive discipline impose करो बच्चों पर. बच्चे self discipline हो, पीट पीट कर discipline हम नहीं impose कर सकते हैं. But when you are sitting in the staff room and some other teacher is talking about his great corporal punishment stories, there also you should stop. कि सर आपने क्या किया, मैम आपने क्या किया? आपने बच्चे के साथ मारपीट किया, आपको लगता है मारपीट करने से बच्चे सुधर जाएंगे? आपको बच्चे को स्पेस देना होगा, वट एवर यू वॉन्ट टू से, बट एडवोकेट नॉन वायलेंस देयर ऑल्सो. So as an individual, you should work for non-violence, and as a team, as a colleague also, you should work for non-violence. Both are very, very important. Now, very important thing. एक मैं आपको छोटा सा एग्जांपल देती हूँ. Teachers, I'll take 5 minutes extra maybe. I'll take a very small example. Now, students from nursery to class 4, 5, if they commit any mistake, if one child commits any mistake, पूरा क्लास आपको बताने लगता है, मैम मैम आज ना इसने ना होमवर्क नहीं किया, मैम आज ना उसको पिटाई पड़ी, आज ना इसने चोरी कर ली, आज इसने लंच नहीं खाया, सारे बच्चे बोलते हैं. लेकिन फ्रेंड्स, जब वो बच्चा क्लास 6, 7 में चला जाता है, suppose the child, you go to the class and you see the window pane is broken, and you ask the child, who has done it? You ask the class, who has done it? आपको लगता है बच्चे जवाब देंगे? Will they tell you who has done it? They will never tell you. Why? What is the reason? The reason is बच्चों ने आपको पहचान लिया है. बचपन से बच्चे पहचान गए कि नहीं यार, इस टीचर को कुछ बताओ, तो उस समय तो वो यस यस करते हैं, लेकिन बाद में पिटाई भी करते हैं अगर बता दो तो ये टीचर तो बता भी देते हैं. दैट मीन्स मैंने जो डिस्क्लोज किया, वो टीचर ने उसकी इज्जत नहीं की. ये बच्चे सीखते हैं नर्सरी से 1, 1 से 2, 2 से 3, 3 से 4, 4 से 5, और जब तक वो 5, 6 में पहुंचते हैं उनका विश्वास आप पे खत्म हो जाता है, इसलिए वो दे डोंट डिस्क्लोज. सो इफ समबडी इज कमिंग विद अ डिस्क्लोजर टू यू कि मेरे साथ ये वायलेंस हुआ है या मैंने वायलेंस किया है, तो उस डिस्क्लोजर को भी संभाल कर रखना आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, डियर फ्रेंड्स. आप कैसे संभाल के रखोगे? अगर आपको बताना है प्रिंसिपल को या पेरेंट्स को, यू प्लीज टेल द चाइल्ड that beta, for your benefit I have to go and tell this to the principal and tell this to their parents. I need to discuss. और नहीं बताना है तो वाकई डिस्क्लोजर रखो. Don't go to the staff room and start discussing. This is very, very important, how to handle disclosures. Keep calm and believe the child कि बच्चा जो बोल रहा है वो सच है. अब आप उसको क्रॉस क्वेश्चन करोगे, उसको गलत बोलोगे तो नहीं काम चलेगा. So keep calm and have faith in the child. And what you should never do is, don't overreact. Don't blame the child. Don't pressure the child. बताओ और बताओ और बताओ. वो जितना बता रहा है उतना ही सुनिए और अकॉर्डिंगली आप एक्ट कीजिए. Don't question aggressively. Ask the child to forget or adjust. No, should never tell the child to forget. याद रखो, or you learn something from this because you will remember it. अगर बच्चा वायलेंस करके या वायलेंस का शिकार होकर भूल जाएगा तो फिर वो रिपीट हो सकता है उसके लाइफ में. So we don't want that repetition. Make the child, don't make the child repeat the story सबके सामने. तुम इनको भी बताओ, इनको भी बताओ, उनको भी बताओ. नहीं, please don't do this. It's very, very important. अब एक लास्ट स्लाइड है ये. इतने देर तो आपने ये सुना कि बच्चे जो वायलेंस का शिकार होते हैं उनको कैसे हेल्प करें, लेकिन आपको दूसरी तरीके से भी सोचना है. जो बच्चे आपके स्कूल में वायलेंस करते हैं, those who are the creators of violence, I'm talking about those students, you should understand what is their perceptions. बहुत सारे बच्चे स्कूल आते हैं ना, दे फील, अरे मैं तो कभी अच्छा नहीं कर सकता, मैं तो कभी एकेडमिकली स्ट्रांग नहीं हो सकता, मैं तो कभी पास नहीं करूंगा, मुझे टीचर कभी नहीं अप्रिशिएट करेंगे, प्रिंसिपल विल नेवर अप्रिशिएट मी. सो आई थिंक चलो यही करके अपना टाइम पास करते हैं स्कूल में, मम्मी पापा तो भेजेंगे ही स्कूल, चलो यही करते हैं. सो ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड. जब हम एक डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं और कहते हैं डॉक्टर साहब मेरे ना पेट में बहुत दर्द है, तो डॉक्टर साहब क्या करते हैं? फौरन से दवाई नहीं लिखते हैं. दे टेल go for urine test, blood test, ultrasound, this, that. What is that diagnosis? So as a teacher, you should also go for the diagnosis process, that why the child is behaving like this, why the child is creating violence. उसके feelings acknowledge करिए and make it very clear to the child. Once you hit the root cause, you will be able to solve it. And then explain the child कि बेटा ये behavior acceptable नहीं है, ये behavior acceptable है. अभी तक तो जो हुआ सो हुआ, but in future if you repeat this, then you have to face the punishment also. So please don't do it. But you can always do all this after proper diagnosis why the child is behaving like this, because nobody behaves like this. Right from your mother's womb, you're not a criminal. You don't learn how to do wrong things. Time teaches you to become wrong, actually. So please revert time. I mean, revert time, I hope you understand what I mean to say. I'm not actually telling you to revert time. You do the reversal process and try to understand how and when the child became like this and why the child became like this. Collectively, say no to violence. जैसे हम अपने स्कूल में लगाते हैं ना, say no to polybags, गेट पे लगा देते हैं, say no to polybags. This is the green school, this is the clean school. Similarly, friends, collectively your school should be a say no to violence school. It should not be only individually, it should be collectively as well. That's all from my side. Thank you so much for being so interactive, so positive, and so wonderful. I had a
Thank you,
wonderful.
ma'am. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
ma'am, for
sir.
a wonderful session.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It was really required of the present scenario, present days.
Very true, sir. Very true. Anybody has any questions in the chat box, you can put up if you have any questions, friends. I'll be very happy to answer if I can. Okay. I think there are no questions. So thank you, everybody. But thank you, Patliputra Sahodaya, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with such brilliant teachers today. Thank you so much. I hope this session was of some use to you. I hope to see you soon. May I leave, sir?
Yes, sure, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.